Now on BBC4, from the early days in the Jeff Beck group and the Faces to the solo years and his recent recordings of the Great American Songbook. Some strong language in an Imagine special as Alan Yentov meets pop legend Rod Stewart.
Think I know now what's making me sad, yearning for my old backyard. I realized maybe I was wrong to leave, swallow up my silly country pride.
And he shows no sign of stopping now.
And that's what I thought we might call the film, They Can't Stop Me Now.
Can't Stop Me Now, I love the idea of that. I love it.
So proud. So proud.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you once more, with feeling, our wonderful young singer, Rod Stewart. Let's have a big warm welcome now to Rod, please. Thank you.
This one's calling up with a tiger in Texas for a bit of action.
I wanted a sound black. Anything from Big Bill Brunsey to Muddy Waters right up to Sam Cooke, Chuck Berry in between.
I put a tiger in your tank. 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 I won't tell the people I put a tiger in your tank.
I used to lose my voice a lot in the old days. Totally self-taught when it came to the breathing and using your diaphragm. No one ever taught me how to do that.
I don't care what the people think. I put a tiger in your tank. Okay, Glenn, you take it away now.
It was a tremendous band to be in because they were all superb jazz musicians, because the jazz era, the trad jazz era just finished, and these guys just went straight into playing the blues, no problem at all.
Raise your hood, I can get your hand. Above my head, above my head. The trouble in the air.
Not only were these brilliant musicians, Rod had found the perfect mentor in Long John Baldry.
I'm trouble in there. Really do believe it. I really do believe it. Heaven somewhere up above my head, up above my head. I see angels everywhere. See angels everywhere. Up above my head.
It was John that instilled the confidence. Thank you, John.
Yes, I do believe it. 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 Ooh, I do believe it.
The great thing was that Long John encouraged everybody, and so people were free. It was a very creative environment. Rod started to kind of develop his own particular style, but his stagecraft, because Baldry would step out of the way and just, go on, Rod, whatever. He got really good at kind of connecting with the audience, and because of his way of dressing from Carnaby Street, these kids would come and they'd dress like him.
Long John's new incarnation, Steam Packet, allowed Rod to experiment with all kinds of musical styles: Motown, soul, blues and gospel.
Motown had melody, and soul music had melody, and this is something I was beginning to really, really fall in love with. Well, we were doing the university circuit, just playing in universities. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. We were earning big money. I remember our agent said, "You're up to £500 a night. This is about what the Small Faces get." And they've had 3 hits.
Rod would sidle up to us at the bar, being extremely thrifty at the time, and say, Bryce, buy us a drink. I'd say, "Well, what do you want? You want a beer?" I'd say, "Well, no, I want a double port and a double brandy." I'd say, "Wait a minute. Where's your money? Oh, my mum made me put all my money in my post office account.
I'm saving up to buy a car at the moment. Somehow I managed to put away about 20 to 25 pounds a week of the money I'm earning. It's a regular thing. Every Saturday I go down, pay it in at the post office. I don't believe in banks. Listen, I think it's like most boys, you know, you want cars and girls. And that was utmost. One comes with the other. You get a nice fancy car, you got a slim chance of pulling the girl.
Definitely will leave your name on the door. And all
Okay.
that. And if you're not there,
I'll be there, don't worry, I'll be there.
Now, obviously, we know that it was around this time you met Ronnie, when you were still...
Oh, that Ponce.
Remember him?
Yeah, my old mucker.
For Rod's next chapter, he had a well-known partner in crime.
Let's not look at us, Ronnie. Go, tune it up, mate. Let's do Spindle Blues.
Takes worried man to sing a worried song. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. I'm worried now, but I won't be worried long.
In the beginning, there was Rod and there was Ronnie, and Rod and Ronnie met in a pub.
Yeah? The Intrepid Fox,
Tell the
Rod.
story, Ronnie.
Okay, Sherlock.
Can you remember that story, or is it?
Yeah. I can remember. It was the Intrepid Fox, as Ronnie said, in Wardour Street.
Yeah.
Wardour Street. We bumped into each other, and I think we were vaguely aware of each other through the business.
He'd had Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, who was new on the scene to me, Rod the Mod, yeah.
And he was with the Birds, and we recognised a nice big nose and a fairly similar haircut.
And he came up to me, we had similar hair, and he just said, hello, face, and I'll never forget it. And years later, we were in Faces.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
Great answer, Rod.
You really do look like brothers, don't you?
We're bookends or a pickaxe.
Let's see the pickaxe.
That's a pickaxe.
You did actually write songs in Rod's room.
Trousers.
And we tried round my old mum's house, as he would say.
No, right, we used to go around his mum's house. We went round there, and we had a yellow page, and we'd sit there, and nothing would happen. We'd just sit there and get a bottle of wine out and get pissed as a fart, and both of us would fall on the floor, and his mum came in and said, well, you're not going to be much of a challenge to the Beatles like that, are you?
By the mid-60s, the music scene had exploded, with many bands emerging, such as the Small Faces and the Yardbirds, whose innovative guitarist, Jeff Beck, would now become a catalyst for Ronnie and Rod.
When Jeff left the Yardbirds, I rang him up. I said, what are you going to do? And he went, oh, hello, mate, yeah. Don't fancy getting together, do you? I said, sure, you know. And then he said, I've got this idea for this vocalist. What's, you know.
Jeff said, listen, the Beatles have written their own songs, and the Stones had just written one of their own songs, and why don't we start trying to write songs?
Back in Ronnie's mum's council house, the boys' writing now took off. Soon they were heading into the studio with Jeff.
You just play, I don't sing it in unison, I can sing it in harmony, can't I, mate?
Well, sing however you want.
But stop me, I'll try something on this first few chords. If it doesn't, if it sounds sus, stop me, right? Make your voice nearly in the background.
But musically, that was also it was very potent stuff. When it was good, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
I'm walking up on morning such as this, and thought exactly the same as I'm thinking now. Every night for a year I've slept alone. My cold damp room looks worse than me. I got a fear of death that creeps on every night.
How loud do you want it? Here we go.
With Jeff, we were always good. They make you better, make you a better vocalist, and you use up the space, because Jeff was good at that, leaving space for me.
Yeah, and you talked about that ability to have that sort of dialogue, if you like, with the guitar.
Shout and response. down my goddamn eyes.
Rod was now becoming aware of how he could use his voice as an instrument.
I wonder how you could treat me so low down and dirty.
With Jeff Beck's backing, the band were now ready to take to the road. Their first stop was New York, and a daunting venue, Fillmore East.
So, Rod, you were particularly nervous.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to. Woody's always wanted to play like Big Bill Brunsey. I wanted to sound like Muddy Waters or Otis Redding. They're all black and we're not. So I thought when the curtain opens at the Fillmore, never having been to America, we're all full of black people and they're going to go, fraud, fraud, fraud. Of course, it wasn't. It was all...
They loved it. We used to blow them away, and we'd be selling them their own music. But unknowing to us,
yeah.
we were selling them songs we loved, but it all came from America.
Things before my eyes just help me to define.
Robert Sheldon from the New York Times wrote the interplay of a pinter play between Rod and Jeff Beck, and that went front page, New York Times. We had it copied, and it was sent from coast to coast. So in Chicago, in Detroit, and by the time we got to LA, we'd already set a precedent.
The Jeff Beck Group were blazing a trail across the United States. It was a chance for Rod to develop his stage presence and play to much larger crowds. The band had created the template for a new kind of performance that others wanted to emulate.
I remember we was in Houston and Jimmy Page would show up, and then Jimmy Page would show up with Peter Grant, the manager, then the two of them would show up with Robert Plant, and they just, you know, they sort of based Led Zeppelin on the Jeff Beck Group. Well, good luck to them. You know.
Hugely influential, the Jeff Beck Group and their first album, Truth, became the blueprint for the heavy blues rock bands that would follow.
It was a groundbreaking album in a groundbreaking moment. You sense that, again, you know, you've got artists here who've got fabulous vision, they've got energy, great ability, but you can just hear the way that they work off one another, and you know, that was the springboard, wasn't it, for Rod's career, really. I think the Truth album was massively important for him.
But despite the brilliance of the music, the band was falling apart because of poor management.
So it was girls, booze and hair, basically, and clothes. That was it.
And sleeping, that's about it.
I'm surprised there was much time for sleeping.
No, not with the shagging we did, Ronnie, eh?
Oh, shut up, Rod. What about all the miserly money? We used to scrimp and save and steal eggs.
Yeah, we did. I mean, it wasn't Jeff's fault.
Very frugal.
He was a great musician. He wasn't really interested in the band as such. He let Peter Grant run it.
Peter Grant was a horrible slave driver.
Yeah.
You know. He used to put us on a pittance.
Pittance is the word, Ronnie. We had to steal sometimes to get some food.
Yeah, from Horn and Hardart, remember, in New York.
Every time I drive by there, I point out and I tell her, me and Ronnie used to nick food from there because we weren't getting paid.
Was it where things went wrong?
We broke up 2 weeks before Woodstock. And it was all money, you know, and all like making a stand and all that. And it was like, oh, it went so sour, didn't it?
In 1969, Ronnie left the band and joined the Small Faces. Rod left soon after, and his first album came out that same year. An Old Raincoat Won't Ever Let You Down became a model for his solo sound.
He was just a great singer with a fantastic voice. I mean, wherever it all went from then on, the one thing that you could center back into was the fact that Rod has this absolutely amazing voice. He was delivering these songs in, you know, touching your heartstrings with the way that he was interpreting the songs. And yet, at the same time, it was as good as effortless for him. He could just reach these notes. If he set himself to hit a note, he just hit it. There was no effort to it at all. It was just, I mean, I always used to think, wow, blimey, this is, one of the great vocalists is emerging here.
And how did that album do? It did well.
Yeah, I thought they're never going to sell 30,000 records, but they did.
And the song that sort of stands out for a lot of people is Handbags and Glad Rags, because I kind of sense that that's a song, that melody really got to you. It sort of feels like that when you listen to it.
Yeah, it was written by Mike Diabo, who was the singer with Manfred Mann. I always had it up there, and I thought I'm going to do that song one day, and I did.
It showed his talent for finding and chasing a song that he knew was right for him. But for all the success of his solo career, he loved being part of a band. Luckily, Ronnie Wood was now with the Small Faces, who'd lost their lead singer.
When the Small Faces split up, the three of us used to get together, me, Mac and Ronnie, and we went down to the Stones had a warehouse in Bermondsey Street. So down the bottom they had a soundproof room, so we went in there to play and jam once a week. And then the following week, Woody brought down his best mate, which was Rod.
Oh, well, we were down there, and I said, well, look, Rod's upstairs.
Listening.
And they were, we don't want another bossy vocalist, you know what I'm saying? He's not bossy, he's really like one of us. Anyway, they eventually, Kenny Wapman asked him, and he came down.
Rod was sitting on the amps most of the time, waiting for us to have a break. I was sitting there looking at a great vocalist, and I thought, yeah, there you go. We got to have him.
You were asked to join. I forced my way in.
Never complained, it was before said. Get to dance before you're my age.
The other Faces recognised a kindred spirit, another working-class lad who loved rhythm and blues, and one of the most influential British rock and roll bands was born.
It's interesting then that what it is that somehow wasn't working for the Jeff Beck band was absolutely at the heart of the Faces, really. In other words, that relationship.
I felt the Faces were like a brotherhood. The Faces were a gang of yobbos.
A lot of these songs, I gather, you're practically writing them as you went on stage, is that right?
Lots in the dressing room, didn't we? Stay With Me, with the Faces Day, we wrote in the dressing room.
So Stay With Me, which is the sort of anthem of the Faces, you wrote.
Yeah, I had the riff, and Rod said, hold that, you know, I've got the words, da-da-da.
In the morning, don't say you love me, 'cause I'll only together you go. I know your name is Serena, 'cause your perfume smells sweeter since when I saw you down on my daddy's floor.
Where would the lyrics come from on those occasions?
Just use your imagination and, or just base it on truth, or just be inspired by something. You know?
Yeah, and it often might suit a situation that you're in at the time, you know. You might be missing home, or missing your girlfriend, or whatever.
Or missing a penalty.
Missing a penalty in his case, yeah.
When you see me, don't forget that I'm your boy. I know my brother has done you probably one foot in the grave. Mother, don't you recognize me now?
And if the rumours were true of the Faces' life on the road, hotel managers can't have been too pleased to see them checking in.
And clearly what the Faces got up to on stage and off stage was...
one and the same.
Yeah, it was just an extension. We used to give the audience a bottle of, a crate of Newfound milk, or on a special occasion, it would be champagne.
Yeah.
They'd all be in the same mood as we were.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that was our backing group a lot of the time, was cases of booze.
This is an arena that holds about, I think, about 13,000, 14,000. Look at all the audience just wandering around the stage and sitting on the stage.
Stand them up on stage with us.
You wouldn't get that anymore.
And then back at the hotel.
How mad did it get? How crazy did it get?
Well, here's how mad. Detroit always used to be a stronghold for us.
That was fabulous.
Detroit, Cobo Hall, and
Grandie Ballroom.
And the Grandie Ballroom. We used to like invite the audience back to the hotel. So it was a holiday inn. They'd let about 300 in on our floor because we'd have the whole floor. But the great thing about it, everybody had wine. Everybody would bring wine. These were good old days. And you could actually leave your room open. Nothing would get nicked. There was loads of girls going up and down the corridor. It was just
pool parties, you know.
Pool
and
parties,
we
yeah.
had private planes sometimes, and the pilot would end up in the pool.
Now, as you can see, this is a charming piece of tapestry which hangs upon the wall in the Ramada Inn here.
Now, I know everyone thinks that the Who were most destructive, but you broke up a fair number of hotel rooms in your time.
Very politely, and we used to rearrange more than break them up. One of mine, well, we all participated in, was actually constructing the room in the corridor.
Oh, that was a good one, yeah.
So we would just sit, you know, having a fag and playing a bit of football and having a cup of tea. And people would come out of the elevator and they'd be like going into somebody's room. We'd arrange all the pictures, all the furniture,
everything would go into the corridor. We'd all just sit round, you know, and enjoy the afternoon cup of tea.
And I remember one hotel manager came up to witness it, and he just folded his arm and he walked along and he just smiled. We were banned from the Holiday Inn chain. We used to have to check in as Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, we did that for a while, yeah. But before they got famous, we booked in as Fleetwood Mac. It was brilliant.
Yeah, for years.
But back in London, this was the early 70s, and the Faces weren't just rock icons, they were fashion models too. At last, Rod was getting proper recognition for his hair and fashion flair.
Is it true to say that one of the reasons this, you know, caught fire, the Faces, was because there was a sort of denim and beards mob coming up in music at that time? It was all rather po-faced.
Yeah, it was serious. Yeah, we came along, we were all loud jackets, loud trousers, loud mouths, loud haircuts.
Velvet and satin.
Where did we used to go and get the clothes? Granny Takes a Trip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We both had jackets. I had a pink one, you had a yellow one with the big cherries on it, do you remember?
We used to meet Mick and the boys in King's Road.
Can't buy that one. Old Mother Bowie's got it. Can't buy that jacket.
And Mark Bolan, we used to, with the feather bowen.
You've got your solo career going, and sometimes you'd see the Faces on stuff which was your gig, and sometimes it would be the other way around. I mean, how, from your point of view, Ronnie, the fact that Rod was becoming more and more successful and more known as a solo performer, how did that, what did it make you feel?
We used to have respect for anybody in our age group that was a couple of years older. If they got famous first, you used to go, that's okay, you know. In fairness, he'd always ring me up and say, yeah, you know, I'm going to make another album. And he'd say, I need help, you know, have you got any songs? And he'd always make me part of his solo album. Man.
In 1971, Rod's third solo album came out. One song, Maggie May, was a sensation. It shot Rod into the realms of superstardom and changed his life forever. The Faces management now saw Rod as the star, and the Faces as a glorified backing band. The 6-year party that had been the Faces was coming to an end.
You know, what happened was, it's suddenly after Maggie May, it became Rod Stewart and the Faces, and I was embarrassed. I really was embarrassed.
I mean, Maggie May, that
was #1 both sides of the Atlantic, one of the first records that...
album and single.
I mean, it was explosive, Maggie May, that, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
So was it very difficult after that to...
Yeah, it was the seed that was sown, I think, really started breaking the
Not
Faces
for me,
up.
though.
No, not for me.
It was like, well done, you know, great, this is great.
Rod's career was shifting slowly to a solo career. We were touring so much, it kind of slipped by us, really. It kind of just overtook us, Rod's career. I think what happened was we lent Woody to the Stones.
I'd have stayed with the Faces for the rest of my life. I mean, he was the first one who left, didn't you? You left first.
Well, because Rod left the band, yeah.
No, did he? You left first? Jagger asked you to join the crew.
Well, that was a year before I joined. But he said he didn't want to split up the Faces either.
Well, when Woody came back, he came back a Rolling Stone, really. And kind of that was... And Rod had moved to America, so the whole thing was falling apart, in a sense, you know.
We're living in the United States now. We've been here 10 days, we've got 9 days to go, then we go home for another 9 days, and we come back for another 3 weeks. Did you get all that?
Yeah, I think it did.
After that last American tour, the band returned to England, but Rod stayed behind.
Yeah, so after Rod announced, viewers, that he was going to leave the band... No, it was just that it was in the air. He was off sailing.
Into it a little bit.
He was off sailing, literally.
I am sailing, I am sailing home again.
In the spring of 1975, Rod met the most glamorous woman of the moment, Swedish actress and movie star Britt Ekland. And the working-class lad from London felt that he'd arrived.
To be near you, to be free.
Rod has lived here in Los Angeles since that time, returning for only 3 months a year to England, where he also has a home.
We're coming to the Brit period. Brit broadened my outlook in everything, you said.
Yeah, she did. She was not only a fabulous film star at the time, she had that...
the Bond
film out, so it was a real feather in my cap.
And that was really your Los Angeles moment. You'd kind of left England. You're laughing because you can see it coming.
Well, it's because I really felt I'd arrived, you know, in Los Angeles with a film star, and I'm a rock star, and, you know, a few shillings in the bank, the sun is shining, love is in the air.
He's a very generous person, emotionally. And I think, in an emotional way, I was really swept off my feet.
Were you?
Yes.
What do you think of her?
She's all right, I guess, for a girl.
Well, she's magnificent. I mean, the thing that I'm more impressed with more than anything is her insight to my business.
But she was extremely worldly. She knew... I was just, because I'd earned a few shillings getting into, you know, trying to invest my money in art, which I've always wanted to do if I ever earned any money, but she was way out there. She knew everything, so, you know, I owe her a great deal.
'Cause I tried to love you, but I didn't fit in.
No, there was a reason for those, if you remember the reason. And actually, if we did it, the two of those would just make the shipping and custom of all the rest worthwhile.
My little baby's calculating what these lamps are going to cost.
Rod had entered the heady world of glamour and celebrity. He appeared to have left his working-class roots far behind. And for the first time, his music was getting negative press.
The albums had done brilliantly. You were still you were absolutely at the top of your game at that point. And then the song that people recall at that time was "Tonight's the Night."
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a flattering way. Some people don't say, which even now is a great song.
It's gonna be alright, 'cause I love you, ain't nobody home.
Didn't the BBC ban it?
Yeah, for a long while, yeah. Just because I sang, "Spread your wings and let me come inside." What's wrong with that, Alan, I ask you?
Spread your wings and let me come inside, come. Tonight's the night.
If popularity is measured in champagne, I know who wins. Look at that. How do you like that? Look at that. See? Sometimes it pays to be a pop star.
During that period, in the back of one of those limousines was a journalist where you're asked about Susan George.
Yeah.
I ask you only to look at it at some point and reflect on what was going through your head.
What about you, Rod? Because you've got a great reputation as a womaniser, and we all read the scandal. You were chatting up Susan George and got a smacked face for it. Do you get annoyed by this?
True. I have to point out at this time, it was absolutely not true. It was one of several totally and utterly fabricated stories about us.
Why is it?
Yes, darling. It's quite true. And what she says is very true.
No, it is true.
What she says has made it very clear, hasn't it?
It has indeed. You're a very good boy.
Were you shagging Susan George was the question. I don't know what the answer might be.
At that time, no, Susan George was a lot later.
Oh, come off it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a lot later. Don't put me on the spot, Alan. I'm trying to be a gentleman here. You know, I wasn't the most faithful of boyfriends in the world. You know, that, to be honest, is something that I'm to this day very embarrassed about. I treated women very shabbily and didn't break up relationships very well. In fact, I didn't break up relationships. I just ran away, you know, which is terrible. It's embarrassing.
That was the last time you kind of ran away in a funny
No, there's been a few running away.
Oh, sorry.
Do you ever sit back to yourself and say, well, how the hell did I ever get this?
Oh, yeah, sometimes you sit back and you think, well, am I really worth being paid X amount of pounds for achieving whatever on a record? Sometimes it makes you a bit depressed, but then I think I've done it.
Why depressed?
Well, because I suppose you get a feeling of guilt, really, which is very stupid. But I've come from absolutely nothing, you know, and I've done it all on my own back.
Rod had come a long way from the football terraces to the Hollywood Hills.